Hello, this is Mr. Lindburg, and I'm here to talk with you today about some simple design tips that can help your history fair project stand out from the sea of trifold displays. The first concept is what we call hieratic scale. When you look at the painting, you say, who is the most important person in this image? Well, it's the Madonna in the center. The medieval painter made her larger than everyone else on purpose so that you would understand that she was the most important person. Big things carry more visual weight, which you're going to use to your advantage through what we call cascading sizes. What should be the biggest element in your display? This is going to be your title. I highly encourage you to have a large title with some kind of visual to draw the viewer in. Just like how on the Wendy sign, Wendy and the name are huge. But right below that is their slogan, quality is our recipe. This would be like your headers. Slightly smaller, just splitting up your display into different sections. Then finally we go even smaller with your block text. This is how you first entice your viewer and then slowly draw them into the meat of your information. We do this through what we call directional elements. Now, I use just big, bright yellow arrows telling you where to go, but there's more subtle ways you can do this. For instance, the design on the left has the words in large 3D white font, so it pops off the page. It's very attractive. But then they've added in the flags that go across the left to the right to give the viewer a visual path between the different parts. We see this carried out in an even more subtle fashion in the upper right design. A large image of a sporting event, and then on those side panels, as you're looking through information, you'll see on the left there's a figure who's punted the football, and the foot that kicked it points us back to the main image. On the right, the man is catching a football, and again, in a hand closest to the image, it visually draws the viewer back to that main image. This is all because advertisers know the longer they can keep you looking at their image, the more likely you are to buy something. Finally, in the image on the lower right, they start with contrast. That black and white of those two panels really pops and draws the attention of the viewer. But from there, using those word balloons as arrows to draw you up to their information as though they are speaking in the various parts. All of these are subtle ways you can control where your viewer looks and how they go through your display without having to settle for those arrows. The next concept is unity versus variety. In art, we're always trying to make the piece feel as though it's one piece, that it all belongs together, hence unity. But we don't want people to get bored, so we want to have some subtle changes in there and variety. So the display on the left starts with that bold red background and the yellow border that holds it all together. They then repeat the popcorn packaging for their informational text. This repetition lets the viewer think this all is supposed to hold together. Finally, they bring variety in subtly. It's as simple as making that popcorn sign pop out of the rectangle space using a slightly different font, different colors, the bright yellow circles surrounding it, the black background. These are small changes that keep the viewer interested. On the right, we have a variety in that the top part is an orange background versus the white background on the bottom. But we're using a similar illustration style throughout. We've got the same font, and we're using those little red banners to split up our sections. These are all ways, repetition, color, to get both unity and variety. Next, let's talk about color schemes. On the left, we have what's called the complementary colors. These are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. Something like red and green, blue and orange, purple or yellow. When you use these colors in combination, they electrify and excite each other. Think about how the Chicago Bears have blue and orange uniforms, or at Christmas time we see a lot of red and green together. They're good pairs that excite each other. In the middle, we have what's called analogous colors. These are 3 to 4 colors on the color wheel that are right next to each other. Oftentimes we think about the warm colors, red, orange, and yellow, which remind us of fire, heat. versus the cool colors, blue, purple, green, which remind us of like the deep ocean or snow. Warm colors tend to make for a happier presentation. Cool colors tend to make for a more serious, calm presentation. They work well together. You could tweak this though by doing something like going orange, red, purple, in which it's still analogous, but that purple is going to be a nice contrast to the warmer orange and red. Same thing if you were to go yellow, green, blue. Our third example is what we call the triad colors. These are an equilateral triangle on the color wheel. It's easiest to think of this as first the primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, which are used in great combinations on things like Superman's costume. Or the secondary colors, orange, green, and purple. Again, bringing a nice little contrast and edge to it. These are all good examples of color theory color schemes that work for almost anything. Next, let's talk about fonts. I have up there in the header 2 fonts because I'm going to strongly encourage that you limit yourself to 2 fonts in this display. Now your headers, your title, they get to be more fun. You can get a little more artistic with these. You can go for a different font that's got a little more visual flair. But do keep them legible. You want them to read from far away. For your body text, you're going to use a more standard text. So something like Arial, Times New Roman, Garamond, or Georgia. These are meant to be clean and easy to read. Now in terms of size, think about the fact that your body text is probably going to be about 18 point. Pretty large for a paper, but not for a display. Alright? And your headers and your titles are going to get much, much larger. Remember, the photocopiers at Northtown can print an 11 by 17 page, so you can go much larger than you normally would. Now, color and font do a lot for design, but how might you actually pick these for your display? I'm going to recommend we go even a step further than before and we look at historical color and font schemes. Look at the year that your subject takes place in and then Google advertisements from that time. So in my example, I picked the year 1963. I Googled magazine advertisements 1963 and did an image search, and this pulls up all these different types of ads and movie posters. These are going to give you a sense of what design looked like in the area you're writing about. The colors people were using, the types of fonts. These examples all kind of have a nice combination of round and sharp, pointy. They're fun. You can see in the car ad that the font is slanted to make it imply speed. We've got some localized color in which some things are very colorful in the image and then other areas have almost no color at all. These are very common for the 1960s. If I had changed in my era with something like, say, 1912, I'd be looking at Art Nouveau, in which things would be much more rounded, organic, quieter, muted colors. Even a decade after that, though, I switch into Art Deco, in which things get sharper, brighter. Go ahead, look at what design was like in the era that you're writing about. It will make your display seem more authentic. Here are some final tips. Number 1, printing your text is always better than handwriting your text. It just looks sharper and more professional. Don't rely on handwriting with marker to get things across. 2, break up the white space. Most of these trifold posters are white, and it's really easy to just put everything in a grid, but that's boring. You want to think about how it looks and flows. You're using mostly black and white photos with black and white text. Make sure you change alignments. Look to put things at different heights. Maybe some things go to the left more, go to the right. You want to create and make the space itself look more interesting. Use borders for your photos, captions, and text boxes. Again, these are going to allow those elements to pop off the page and appear more enticing. You can also use color to group things. Certain things that go together could have one color. Different groups could have another color. This could also be used, these borders can go beyond being rectangles. You can find some ways to sneak some other shapes in for that visual variety and also to help direct your viewer through the display. I'm going to also encourage you to push beyond the rectangle boundary. Don't limit yourself just to that rectangle trifold. Find a way to make things shoot out of there to change the shape. This will help draw attention to your display. That one for the shed aquarium on the far right there, has an architectural element on the top that reminds us of the shed aquarium, while also having the animals hang down by strings, allowing them to move with a gentle breeze. This is cool to change the shape and add a little motion. Don't overcrowd your design. If you put things too close together, it's going to feel claustrophobic. Your viewer won't know what to look at. Give a little bit of space for each element to breathe and rely on itself. Always plan your layout before gluing. Once you glue something down, it's really hard to move it and fix it. I recommend using tape on the back of things. Lay it out. Figure out where you want it first, then glue. Finally, give yourself a lot of time. Glue takes time to dry. I often glue things and put a weight on it so it'll dry flat. You should consider this, that anything you do is going to take much longer than you expect. All right, y'all. Good luck. I can't wait to see what you make.